Okay, Baruch Hashem, we're holding in Masechet Sanhedrin, and we are on the bottom of Nun Tet Amud Bet, so 59, B4 in the art scroll. Really the last line over there, last couple of words. So we're in the middle of the sugya, and today we'll end the sugya. We end the topic on the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, and the last couple of things. Let's take a look. Rav Shimon Omer, Af al ha kishuv, that Bnei Noach, the Goyim, are also forbidden to make magic. And to make magic, it's one of Shimon's Bnei Noach, you would have to execute them. Now, my Tam Rav Shimon, what's the reason, Rav Shimon? Dichtiv, as we're now on the top of Samach Amud Aleph, because it says in Shemot, Machashefa lo tehayeh, you should not let a sorceress, a witch, to live. Uchtiv, and then right after it says, Kol any person who has relations with an animal also has to be killed. Anyone who's involved in Sheichev Behema, whose Isser for them is to be also with the Behema. Yeshna Bechal will also be included lo techayem, that they should not be allowed to perform magic either. And since Goyim have the Isser of having relations with animals, so too they would have the Isser of being wizards and witches. And as such, they would be, according to Shimon, they would be Hayamita if they performed magic. Now, the Rambam does not bring this down lahalacha, so it seems to be that, according to the Rambam at least, that this is a deya achad. This is one opinion, and the halacha is not followed like this opinion. Okay, continuing. Rabbi Eliezer said back on Daf Nun Vav, afal kilayim. So too on kilayim. What is kilayim? So kilayim we know are forbidden mixtures. Now, but there are 4 types of kilayim. The first one is kilayim of zroim of seeds, and those are 2. The 2 types of zroim, which is number 1 is planting different seeds together, which seems to be rabbinic, as well as an isser of grafting one tree onto the other. For example, taking a pear tree, taking the branch of a pear tree, and attaching that branch to an apple tree, making a hole in the apple tree, and putting that in there, and now the properties of both will mix, and the fruit will come out a mixed fruit. That is another form of klei zorim, which is a aser. Then you have klei akarim, which is a climb of a vineyard, planting other seeds in a vineyard. That's another form of kilayim. So that's 2 already, two forms of climb. We have then kilayim by behema. Right, this week's parsha talked about it a little bit. So 2 types of climb by behema. You have a climb by behema. Number 1 is not to work with 2 types of animals, like an ox and a donkey. Right? I saw interestingly, everyone knows pshat is that because the donkey doesn't chew its cud and the ox does, and the donkey will get jealous and say, how come he's chewing, he's not? Chamavaji and Rav Pam take a very interesting approach to that pasuk in this week's parsha, past Shabbos parsha, is that he's saying, there are different types of animals, and you can't put 2 types of animals together. So they say further, if it's true by animals, it's true by people too. And they were saying by shidduchim. Some people by shidduchim, they say, oh, this person, this guy is a boy, he wears pants, and she's a girl, she has a skirt, so you could just make a shidduch. Pam and Chamavaji both say no. You have to see what type of people they are. You have to be comparable. You have to be someone who can get along with each other. You can't just put any pants with any skirt. You have to mix it. You have to mix it right. Rav Pam takes it a step further and says, so too applies with people in general. And a lot of people like to compare people, compare children, compare cousins, compare this, compare that. He says, but you can't, because everybody's different. You can't compare an ox to a donkey. You can't put together. So do people who are different can't be compared to each other either. Interesting take on that. Anyway, that's one type of climb by behema. Second form of climb by behema is, for example, if a person takes a horse and a donkey and makes the horse and the donkey have a child together, and From that becomes a mule, a different type of animal. The animal cannot have any children. That's another type of climb by behemoth. Okay, and then the fourth type of kilayim is a kilayim by begodim, by clothing, and that is shatnez. That is not wearing wool and linen. All right, and everybody knows shatnez is a halacha. It's a deoraita. It's from the Torah. It's a chok. It doesn't make any sense. We follow it, and therefore, anytime you buy something that has wool or linen, you really have to get a shatnez check, unless you know for certain there is no of the other mixture in it. A person would have to get it checked for shatnez. Okay, so now let's see. Rabbi Eliezer says, so too, the Bnei Noach have an Isser of Kilayim. They cannot mix things. How do we know this? Where do we know this? This is the Torah. Torah says it after Har Sinai. It says that the mitzvahs of Kilayim. So why would we think that Goyim would have this? Because it says in the pasuk. This pasuk is in Vayikra 19:19, and it says over there, "Et chukotai tishmoru." You should my chukim. You should keep. Et chukotai tishmoru. Hashem tells the Jews, chukim. What does that mean? You should watch my statutes. You should chukotai, my statutes, my chukim. You should keep chukim shechakakti lecha kevar. The chukim that I already gave you. When did you give us? We're at Har Sinai right now. You're telling us the whole Torah. When did you already give us? Chukim shechakakti lecha kevar. Oh, what does that mean? Hashem gave to us when we were Bnei Noach. And what are the Isurim? What is the Kalim? Or they have all the dinim of Kalim just like Jews? No. It says in that pasuk, "Behem techalot be a Kalayim." You should not mix your animals to mate them. Sadechalot is our Kalayim. You should not plant your field with diverse kinds. What type of Isur Kalayim? This ma behem techa b'har ba'a. Just as you're not allowed to mix the different types of species to produce another species, sadecha b'har kova. So too, you're not allowed to graft one species of tree onto another species of tree. It's an interesting. The Yerushalmi has a lashon of not just chukim shechakakti lecha kevar, but rather the lashon of the Yerushalmi is chukim shechakakti lecha b'maaseh bereshis, meaning that only the chukim of natural law that was established at the time of creation is those that the Goyim are not allowed to not allowed to perform. What does that mean? For example, Hashem created horses, Hashem created donkeys. So don't go ahead and create a new offspring, a mule, because that's not in the nature of the world to be. So too with grafting species. You're grafting species. You're taking a pear and an apple in our example, and you're making those fruits combine. Again, that's not in the Maaseh Bereshit. That's why it's Issa for the guy. But because Tosfos asks, what about Kalayim Shatnez is in the same pasuk? In the pasuk that we said about this about mating animals and mating the trees, it says Uveged Kalayim Shatnez lo yala alecha. So answers the Mefarshim, and they say that but if you understand like the Yerushalmi, that it's the chukim of Bereshit, shatnez is not included, because wool and linen doesn't produce a new material. It's just a mixture of two things. It's not a new material. It's not something new that comes from it. Therefore, the Goyim don't have an isser of shatnez. Therefore, the Goyim don't have the isser of mixing seeds. Why? Because when you plant the seeds in the same field, it'll grow different stuff. It's just all of them are together. The same thing with Kli HaKerem, with planting different vegetables in a vineyard. Again, the vineyard will grow as the vine, and the vegetable will grow as the vegetable. And we have an Issur Klayim there, but that there is no change in the nature of the Maaseh Bereshit. And therefore, according to that way of understanding the Yerushalmi, the halachot that's brought down here makes very good sense, because it's only the Isser of something. For the Goyim, the Isser of Kilayim, they're only the Isser that changes natural law, right? Because Hashem gave us chukim shechakakti lecha b'maaseh bereshit, that I gave you at the creation of the world. Continues the Gemara, and the Gemara adds on another din. Now, ma behim techa ben ba'aretz ben b'chutz la'aretz, just like by kilaim of a behema, mating different animals. It doesn't matter if you're in Eretz Yisrael or outside of Eretz Yisrael. It's not a mitzvah that's totally ba'aretz. It's not a mitzvah that's dependent on the land that you're in. So in the same pasuk, it says Asadecha ben ba'aretz ben b'chutz la'aretz. It says that you can graft the trees, right? And so it should also be no difference whether it's in Chutz la'aretz or whether it's in Eretz Yisrael. It shouldn't be dependent on the land. Rather, it's dependent in the mitzvah. Now, before we go further, let's take a look in the halachot that are brought down regarding kilayim for us, kilayim for the for goyim. So let's see what it brings down here. Kilay behema. Let's talk about kilayim by behema. That was the first topic we brought. Hamarkiv zachar on the keva she'enu mino bein behema. It doesn't make a difference if the animal is a domestic animal, whether it's an undomestic animal, whether it's a bird, whether it's a fish. If a person mates those two species together, whether it's in Eretz Yisrael, whether it's in Chutz La'aretz, you're not allowed to put two animals that are not from the same species to create a different species. He says here that this is only if you force them to have the child together. But if you just leave them alone, it's not the Isser of Kalayim, but you will still get Makat Mardut, which is a Makot from Betin, from the Rabbanim. Okay, what about Klai Zroim? Klai Zroim, can that be done in? Is that like we said over here? It's everywhere in Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz. So he brings down here. He brings down over here as follows: Umuter Yisrael lezroya klei zroim biyada b'chutz la'aretz. You're allowed to make klei zroim in chutz la'aretz for a Jew. V'afilu arva zarim lechatchila zarim b'chutz la'aretz muter. V'dorm elu divrei kabbalah, and this is a Masorah that we have. This is the Shulchan Aruch talking. And he says we have a Masorah that you're allowed to do klei zroim in chutz la'aretz lechatchila. L'chatchila in chutz la'aretz, a Jew is allowed to do it. I'm assuming if a Jew is allowed to do it, then a guy would also be allowed to do klei zroim in chutz la'aretz. Okay, fine. So that's a halachot on kilayim. Now, so unlike our Gemara here that compares klei zroim to klei behema, the halacha does not compare them. Now the Gemara says, hold on a second. You told me the whole reason why we're saying that kilayim exists by goyim because it says et chukotai tishmaru, chukim that I already gave you, you should watch. But one second, there's another pasuk. This pasuk is in Vayikra 18:5, and it talks about keeping all the mitzvos. If you want to take a look in the Torah or Shalom, the pasuk we're about to quote, Ushmartem echukotai, you should watch my chukim, vet mishpatai, my laws, asher yaseh otam ha'adam, that a person should do, v'chai b'hem, and he will live with them. Ani Hashem, right? This is talking about all the mitzvot in the whole Torah. That a person should perform all the mitzvot in the Torah, and this way he would live by them. So now you're telling me it says ushmartem et chukotai, just like I had before, et chukotai tishmaru, and that means all the mitzvot. That means the mitzvah climb already existed beforehand. So are you telling me now that this mitzvah exists? All the mitzvahs already exist by the goyim as well. So Gemara says makes a difference. Now there's does it mean that all the mitzvahs that I already gave you? We're asking hatam over here where it says ushmartem et chukotai, you should watch my mitzvot. It says you should watch, and then it says you should watch the chukim, the laws, the hashta. Watch those that I'm about to give you. But in the other pasuk, by kilayim, it says et chukotai, the laws tishmoru, watch. It says the laws first, and then it says to watch them. Meaning, these laws are already there, continue to watch them. Therefore, it's chukim tishmoru, that you were supposed to already watch. So the Gemara says, if it says chukim first and then tishmoru, that means it was already given. You continue to watch them. If it says ushmartem, watch, and then it says chukim, that means watch those new chukim that I'm about to give you. Therefore, the other mitzvahs of the Torah were not given before, and were not given to Bnei Noach. Okay. Now we're going. This finishes, by the way. This finishes the sugya for now. The Sheva mitzvahs Bnei Noach was very elaborate. We went through many weeks, went through many dafim of the Sheva Bnei Noach. Now we're going back to our original Mishnah on Daf Nun Hey, and it said over there, we're going back to the case of the Megadef. Remember Megadef? This is a guy who curses Hashem. We should never see such a thing. But if cursing curses Hashem, we saw the halacha. What it means to curse Hashem is that a person has to use one of the 7 names of Hashem, the kinuyim of Hashem's name, such as Kel, Tzavakot, Shakai, Elokim, and he says that, let's for example, Shakai should curse, and he says Yud Kei Vav Kei, or he says, according to the Rambam, Yud Kei Vav Kei or Aleph Daled Nun and Yud, right? So he uses either the Yud Kei Vav Kei or, according to the Rambam, as well as Aleph Daled Nun Yud, and that is a person who's considered a Megadev, and he gets skila. So now starts the Gemara. Until he curses the 4-letter name, right? And what's the 4-letter name? Yud Kei Vav Kei, or Aleph Dal Nun Yud, or according to the Rambam. Now, before we move on to the Gemara, we have to understand the Rambam. What does the Rambam mean, the Aleph Dal Nun Yud? Does he mean that just as the Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei is a special name of Hashem, that Aleph Dal Nun Yud is also a special name of Hashem, and therefore both of them are the Shem and Muyuchad, and therefore if you curse either one, you get punished? Is that the way to look at it? Is that the way to look at it? Or is the way to look at it that really the Rambam holds the Shem HaMeyuchad is only Yud Kei Vav Kei, especially Hashem is only Yud Kei Vav Kei. And the reason why he says someone who curses Aleph Daled Nun Yud as well is because it's used. Aleph Daled Nun Yud is always used in lieu of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Therefore, if you curse Aleph Daled Nun Yud, it's as if you're cursing Yud Kei Vav Kei, and therefore you get punished as well. Right? Is that the way the Rambam sees it? The question is, does the Rambam see the Aleph Daled Nun Yud as being a special Shem HaMiyuchad of Hashem as well? Or does he see Aleph Daled Nun Yud being a kinoin, a nickname for Yud Kei Vav Kei, but since it's used in the place of Yud Kei Vav Kei, therefore a person curses it, a person will get skilo as well. So that's just a idea in the Rambam how he would hold and what Aleph Daled Nun Yud is. But regardless, the Rambam would hold person curse Yud Kei Vav Kei or Aleph Daled Nun Yud, he would get skila. Now, lafuke ben shtei otiot delo, to exclude someone who only curses Yud Kei or Aleph Daled. I mean, he says Shakai should curse Yud Kei. Doesn't say Yud Kei Vav Kei. Shakai should curse Aleph Daled, and he doesn't go further than that. So then he doesn't get skila. He has to use the 4-letter name. Gemara says Pshita, it's obvious, because in our Mishnah, we wanted to say what the person said. We don't want to usually actually say Hashem's names, like I'm telling you, for example, to understand the Gemara. The Mishnah says, Yake Yosei Yosi Tanan, that Yosi hit Yosi. Right? Now, what's Yosi? Yosi is the name that we're using instead of saying Hashem's name. Yosi b'gematria, we already saw before, is 86. Right? You have a samach, 2 yuds, 6. And 86 is the name Elokim, is also b'gematria 86. Someone also said to me that Yud Kei Vav Kei and Aleph Daled Nun Yud is also 86 together. So therefore, we chose the name Yosi at Yosi, and Yosi is spelled with 4 letters. Yud, Vav, Samech, Yud. So it's teaching us. It's when you say a 4 letter with a 4 letter. That's what it is. The Gemara says, no, when it said Yossi hits Yossi, they didn't mean it on purpose that the 4 letter name. Rather, we just chose a name, Yossi, to represent Hashem's name. Kamashalon, and they're telling us, no, Yossi is actually 4 letters. It tells you have to curse the four-letter name of Hashem to be Hayav Mita. Okay, now, okay, now the Gemara is going to give another understanding of Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov, another version of his statement. Ikadama. There are those who say, Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov, Sheminamina Shem ben Arba Otiyot Nami Shemhu. That if a person curses the 4-letter name, he also gets punished. What does that mean? Also gets punished. Does that mean there are other names? What other name is getting punished for? So we'll take a look in a minute. The Gemara is going to explain. Pshida, of course, for the 4-letter name you get punished because it says Yaki Yossi et Yossi Tinan. Yossi hit Yossi, and Yossi is a 4-letter name. The Gemara says, I would think you don't get punished until you use the big name of Hashem. Rashi says the big name of Hashem is the 42-letter name of Hashem. Apparently, there is a name of Hashem that is 42 letters. There are other Mefarshim that say it is the 12-letter names, the Yad Ramah. In fact, the Gemara, I believe it's Kedushin, that says that the Kohanim, the Beit HaMikdash, when they did Birkat Kohanim, they did not say Yud Kei Vav Kei. Rather, they said the 12-letter name of Hashem. There are others who say there is a 72-letter name of Hashem. And that one was never pronounced, not even in the temple. Again, how exactly you would pronounce a 72-letter name of Hashem or a 42-letter name of Hashem is very hard, because if you think about it, most words are not that long. Actually, Chaim Kanievsky used to ask his children what was the longest word in Tanakh, and there was a word in the Megillas Esther. I don't remember the word right now, but it's in the Orchos Yosher and Mamre Tes. And it's an 11-letter word, and it's found in the Megillas Esther, and that's the biggest letter in Tanakh, the biggest word in Tanakh, 11 letters. So you don't have words that are really that big, because how would you pronounce them otherwise? I would think. But somehow Hashem has a name that could be either 72 letters, 42 letters, 12 letters, a huge name. And maybe I would think you only get punished with skila if you curse this Shem Rabbo, this big name. And you use Yossi, Yake Yossi, just to use it. That's the example, but it's not meaning anything. Mashalan, so Yaakov is teaching us, no, a 4-letter name is also a shame of the Yuchad, especially the name of Hashem. If a person curses even the 4-letter name of Hashem, he would also get punished for that. It turns out from this Gemara that according to this version, that the Ikar Hadin is when you curse the 42-letter name of Hashem. We also added on the 4-letter name of Hashem. Yeah, it's a Gemara in Kedushin Ayin Aleph Omid Aleph that says the Kohanim would bless the nation with the 12-letter name of Hashem in the Beit HaMikdash, and not Yud Kei Vav Kei. Okay, fine. Continuing the Gemara. The Gemara says Nigmar Hadin. Now, while the court case was going on with the Megadef, the person who cursed Hashem, we don't have the witnesses saying the exact statement the whole time. It's Busha. We don't want to curse Hashem's name over and over again. But we need to hear it. So at the end, when we already realize all the details and we see this guy is going to be executed, now we have to hear exactly what was said. And what happens is everybody in the Bidden has to stand up. So the Gemara's question is, I'm the Minalan. How do we know we have to stand up when we hear Yud Kei Vav Kei, when we hear Hashem's name? How do you know that you have to stand up? So I'm the Minalan. How do we know when you hear Yud Kei Vav Kei, you need to stand up? So my question on this, according to the Rambam, who says the Shem Yuchad is also Aleph Dal and Nun Yud, we say Aleph Dal and Nun Yud many times, and we're sitting. And Gemara is asking, how do you know you have to stand? And we have to stand when it happens. So perhaps this works good with the opinion that we brought before. The Rambam says the Alf Dal Nun Yud is not the Shem Miyuchad. But since it's used in its place, so if you curse it, you're going to get punished for it with skila. But really, Alf Dal Nun Yud is not the same as Yud K. Okay, then perhaps that's why we're able to sit when we say certain brachot with Aleph Dal Nun and Yud. Perhaps that's the way we can see it. So anyway, how do you have to stand when you say Yud K? Okay, Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Ami. It's what Ami said, the Omar Kra, because it says in a pasuk, the Ehud Ba'ila. Ehud was one of the Shoftim, and Ehud went to visit the king of Moab. This guy was Eglon, really fat dude, and he goes to visit him. And he had an upper chamber, which was cool. This guy was very hot. So he was in his cooler chamber. And Ehud came to deliver him a message. Yomer Ehud, right, and then he kills him. Right? He puts a sword in, he puts a dagger in him. He's so fat that they can't even find the dagger. They don't know where he's dying from. In fact, Ehud leaves him, and they don't even know that he was killed yet. And they start smelling a stench, and they thinking that he was in the bathroom the whole time, and he's making a huge mess. This guy is really big. And only later did they realize he was killed, and they couldn't find the dagger. Right, the whole story. Everybody knows the story. Ehud, this is in Shoftim. Anyway, it says when Ehud came, Ehud said, "I have a message for you." I have a message from Hashem for you. And what does it say, Eglon? This really big guy. He got up from his chair. He got up from his throne. He got up from sitting. He got up to stand. And but Lloyd Dvarm Kal B'Chomer is it not a Kal B'Chomer? Uma Eglon Melech Shu Nochri V'Loida El B'Kunimi Uma Eglon Melech Moab. Now, Eglon was only a Melech Moab. By the way, because of his standing up, he was zeichet to his grandchildren to join Klal Yisrael. Right? You know that before. We know those midrashim. Uma Eglon Melech Moab. Shu Nachri. He's a guy. Well, and he only knew Hashem's name like Elokim, and yet he stood up. Amad. So then, for sure, Yisrael, if a Jew, B'Shem HaMefurash, and he hears Hashem's name, Alachat Kama V'Kama, then how much more so he has to be standing, right? And that's maybe perhaps the liturgy that we read, the prayers that we read in Yom Kippur, right? When we do Musaf, when we read Avodah, we say that the Kohen says Hashem Mefurash, and everybody stands up, and then everybody bows down while they're hearing it. And the reason for that is you have to be standing in order to bow. You can't bow from a sitting position. Interestingly, halacha related to that, the Yalkut Yosef says that when it comes to modim de rabbanon, right, modim that you repeat in the Shmona Esrei, right, so the Chazan says the regular modim, and all the other people say the modim de rabbanon. You'll see some people say modim de rabbanon, and they get up from the chair, modim and avdulach, and that's the way they do modim. The Yalkut Yosef says you cannot do modim that way. He says in order to do modim, you have to bow, and you cannot bow from a sitting position. It's not considered bowing. Therefore, in order to do modim de rabbanon, halacha l'maisa is for us, we have to stand and then bow. Okay, interestingly enough, it's related to this. Okay, so we see if you hear the Yud Kei Vav Kei, you have to stand up. Now, the Mishnah also said that when the judges hear the curse that was actually said, Korin, they rip their clothing. They make kriya, like a person has shalom would lose a parent, he would have to rip kriya. You have to rip their clothing. So too, when you hear Hashem's name being cursed. Question is, Korin minalan. How do we know we have to rip it? Because there is a story that goes on. Vayavo Eliakim ben Chilkiah, V'Shebna HaSofer, V'Yoach ben Asaf, Hamaskir et Chizkiyahu, Kiru'ei begadim, V'Yagidu lo et Divrei Rav Shaker. Okay, so there is a story that Sanhedrin sent his agent, Rav Shaker, to go and conquer and to scare the Jewish people. And in his pursuit of this, he cursed Hashem's name. And these people, Eliakim, Shebna, and Yoach, they heard this. They came to Chizkiyahu to tell him what they heard. And they ripped their clothing when they heard it. So here we see from the Nevi'im, right, from the book of Melachim Bet, we see that if you hear Hashem's name being cursed, you have to rip your clothing. Okay. Another halacha that was said in the Mishnah, lo me'achin. You can never repair them. Just like the halacha by a parent. If by a parent you rip the clothing, rip kriya, You're never allowed to patch it up. And the reason for that, and understanding for that, we talked about when we learned Mesechus Moed Katan. We said the reason for that is that because there are certain pains in the world that are never supposed to be fixed, right? Person has a father and a mother. This is his parents. Can never replace them, right? They're not replaceable. Person cannot. Once they're lost, and therefore the kriya has to stay forever. You can't say I found the new dad or I found the new mom. You can't do that. Therefore, when you lose, a person loses his mom or his dad, Pastor Shalom, you should never see that. But if it happens, then that rip can never be fixed. And the same thing, if you hear Hashem's name being cursed, there has to be a lasting impression that that was a very bad thing. You can't get used to it. And therefore, that kriya has to remain forever. Now, how do we know this? How do you know that you cannot fix it? So, Atya kriya kriya. We make exer shava of kriya of ripping. It says over here, kiwe begodim. They rip their clothing, right? This Eliakim, Shevna, and Yoach, they rip their clothing when they heard Rav Shaket curse Hashem. And Ktiv Hacha, Uchtiv Hasa, when it says by Elisha and Eliyahu, it says as follows. So Elisha is the student of Eliyahu, and he sees Eliyahu going up in the chariot of fire, and he's going up to Shemayim. And Elisha saw this, so and he started crying, and he says, Avi, father, right? And they explained that father means father, mother, but he wouldn't call Eliyahu mother, but Eliyahu took care of him as a father and a mother. Rechev Yisrael, the chariot of Israel, Ufaroshav, and its horsemen, the Lora who owed, and he didn't see Eliyahu Hanavi anymore. He saw him going up the Shemaim, he didn't see him anymore. And what did he do? So he lost Eliyahu, right? Eliyahu didn't die, but he lost Eliyahu. So he took his clothing, and he ripped them into two kiraim, into two torn pieces. Now, it says he whipped them into two. Don't I know it's already in two pieces? Why does it say kiraim again? Right? It says, look at that pasuk again. He ripped them into two pieces. He ripped them. Why have to say twice? He ripped them. That it was torn again. That when you lose your father, lose your mother, and you see something migadev, then you rip them, and it can never be patched up again. Obviously, you could put halacha says you could put a safety pin, or you could do other little fixes, like for example, especially by the woman when they rip kriya, right? They cannot walk around with ripped shirts. That's not tznius. They cannot fix it either. It means they can't stitch it back to being nice, but they can put safety pins in there. It's not fixing it forever. It's just a temporary put, and it's never going to really be fixed. But you can put like safety pins and the like to hold it together. That's halach l'maisa. Tana Rabbanon. Whether one hears it, one hears a person cursing Hashem, and a person who hears it from someone who heard it. Chayav likroa. They have to rip. V'ha'edim in chayavim likroa. But the edim who are repeating it, they don't have to rip it the second time. Meaning, since they already ripped their clothing the first time when they heard the person say it, shekvar kara b'shasha shamo, because they already heard it, they don't have to rip it again. V'chi karu b'shasha shamu. So what? They heard it when they heard it. Ha krashima hashta. Now that they're repeating it, they're hearing again. So why shouldn't they rip it again? Don't think that way. Because it says when Eliakim and when Shebna and when Yoach, when they came to Chizkiyahu HaMelech and they told him what they said, Vayikishmo HaMelech Chizkiyahu et Divrei Rav Shakeh, Vayikra et Begadav, he ripped his clothing, HaMelech Chizkiyahu Kara, he ripped his clothing, Vehem Loi Karu, but they did not rip again. So here we see that the Edom who were repeating it do not have to rip again. Amar Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Hashomeya Askara Mipio B'Kachavim. Shmuel says that if a guy curses Hashem, you don't have to rip kriya. Morris says 1 second. Rav Shakeh. What about Rav Shakeh? Rav Shakeh worked for Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin is Melech Ashur. He's the king of the Assyria, right? Today there's Syria, but there used to be a place called Assyria, right? Ashur. And he was the king of Ashur. And Rav Shakeh worked for him. So wasn't he a guy? So why did Eliakim, Yoach, And Shevna, why did they rip their clothing? Why did Chizkiyahu rip their clothing? According to Shmuel, they didn't have to rip their clothing. Gemara answers, no. Yisrael Mumarhu Haya. He was a Mumar. He was a Jew who renegated against Judaism. He went against Judaism. And according to Midrashim, Rav Shaka might actually be a child of Chizkiyahu. Okay, the Midrashim say that Chizkiyahu had two children, actually. He had Menashe and he had Rav Shaka. According to the Midrashim, is that Chizkiyahu was once carrying them to yeshiva, and he heard how bad they were speaking, so he dropped Rav Shakeh. He dropped both of them, and Rav Shakeh died. Now, whether he actually died or means he became a Yisrael Mumar, and he left Judaism, that might be the same Rav Shakeh. Whether or not it's the same Rav Shakeh doesn't make a difference. Halacha, he was a Jew, Yisrael Mumar Haya, according to Shmuel. Okay, I'm reading Domer Shmuel. Ein Karin el Hashem Yuchad Bilvad. We only rip if the person curses Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, and not if they curse one of the other names. Someone says, curse Hashem, right? He's not saying Yud Kei Vav Kei, he's saying Hashem. So you would not rip Kriya for that. Upligi, and that's actually an argument. The Rebbe Chia B'Tarvai. Rebbe Chia argues on both of these points. The Amr Rebbe Chia. So Rebbe Chia said, Hashomeya asker Rabbis Manazeh. The person hears someone cursing Hashem's name today. Enu chayev likroa. He doesn't have to rip. Shem yata omer kain. Because if you don't say this, if you hear someone cursing Hashem today, then you don't have to rip kriya. Nitmaleh kol hagbeged kiraim. All your clothing will be ripped because today people are cursing Hashem's name left and right. Therefore, you would have to rip all your clothing. Gemara says, Miman, wait, who is cursing so much today? Ilemi Yisrael, do you say Jews are cursing Hashem so much? Mi pikire kula hai. Do you think the Jews are so bad they're going to be cursing Hashem every day? Every time that all your clothing is going to be ripped? It must be goyim. So that means Rechia holds that if a guy curses Hashem, you have to rip kriya, not like Shmuel. And is the guy using Yud Kei Vav Kei? Mi Gemiri. Who's teaching them Yud Kei Vav Kei? They don't know that. They just know God. They know Allah. They don't know the actual names of Hashem. Elalav kinoi. Rather, Chia means even with a kinoi, even if they use a kinoi, a nickname of Hashem, they would also have to rip kriya. Ushmamina bazmanazeh hudeloi. So Chia says, really, that's the halacha. That was the halacha originally, but nowadays we don't do it anymore. Hami karachai, but originally they were chai. They rip kriya, even if a guy cursed Hashem, even if he uses Hashem's nicknames and not the actual Yud Kei Vav Kei. Shmamina. One from this, Chia argues with Shmuel. Alach today the halacha is like Shmuel because even Chia said that if not for that, every time you hear a guy curse Hashem, you would have to rip your clothing, and all your clothing would be ripped. You would have no clothing to wear. So therefore, we don't rip anymore. For kinuyim, we don't rip if a guy curses. Hasheni Omer. Then we said in the Gemara, Hasheni Omer, Af ani kamohu. So the one witness says exactly what the guy cursed Hashem with. What was the phrase he used? And the second guy doesn't repeat it. He just says, I heard that also. Amar Reish Lakish, Mamina, Af ani kamohu. Kosher b'din yamanos udin nefashos. Really, according to the Torah, you don't need two witnesses saying the same thing all the time, even by monetary cases. One says it, and the other guy says, that's what I saw, or that's what I know. But the rabbis refined the halacha. And they said by monetary cases, you make both witnesses say everything, just so we can be very careful. But now, since it's not possible to do that by this case of the Megadev, you don't want two witnesses saying the curse. You don't want to keep repeating it. So therefore, the halacha goes back to the original halacha of the deoraita, and only one person has to say. The other one can say that I concur. The sakat pasu, because if you would say that that's not the case, that you have to hear both of them, and even deoraita. So then, when we kill a person if we didn't hear both? If you say deoraita, you have to hear both of them saying it. Then would you kill someone if only one of them saying another guy says I concur with what he said? No, you have to hear from both. So it must be Rish Lakish says deoraita. You only need one witness to say what he saw, what he heard, and the other witness can say, I concur with it. And that's the right, and therefore that's what we hold by Megadev. But by dinim mamanos, by money, the Chachamim added on, and they said you should ask both people to explain it completely. The Rishonim argue on this understanding over here. What about today? Okay, so you're dealing with a monetary case, let's say, and one witness says, "This is what happened." The other witness says, "Yeah, that's what I saw." He didn't say the whole thing. Does that work or not? Do we say that when the Chachamim, do we say that the Chachamim? So let's read over here from the Ravan. According to the Ravan, since the Chachamim made it a gezerah by Mamonos that you have to have it from two witnesses, therefore, if the second witness doesn't say the whole thing, and just says that's what I heard, edot pasul, even on a Doraita level, even the Doraita that will be enough. Chachamim came and said it's never going to be enough. You have to say the whole thing. And this is what the Sefer Iter says. That's what the Meiri says. So many will hold like this. Otherwise, on the other side, you have Rabbeinu Yerucham, and he says that no, we want them to say that both of them to say the whole thing. But if he says, I also saw it like him, even though that's not what we want, but since the whole Gezerah was just to up the level, to make it better, but really it's enough. If one of them says and the other one says, I concur, therefore it would still be Edut. So the question is, the Rishonim argue, if in Mamanos, he said, this is what happened, the other guy says, I concur, can we hold it or not? So Machloket Rishonim, not sure what the halacha l'maisa is on this case. I'll see if we have a minute. I'll try to check in the back to see if he brings anything. I don't remember that he did. Let's just end off the Gemara. The Gemara says, "Va'ashlishi Aomer Afani Kamo." And if there was a third guy, did I skip? I did all that. All right. Va'ashlishi Aomer Afani Kamo. And the third guy says, "I also." If there was a third witness. He also says, me too." Gemara says, "Who is this?" The Makish Losha right? Because it says in Pasuk, Al Pishnei Edim or Shloisha Edim, whether you have two or three. Rabbi Akiva says, even though you only need two, but if you have three, all three of them are required to give Edut. And if one of them can't, and one of them becomes Pasul, the whole Edut, even though you have two kosher witnesses, but since the third one is in their party, two is like three, and if one of them is messed up, the whole thing gets thrown out. Makish Losha Shnayim. Okay. So we'll end off over here. Let me just take a quick look at the back if there was any halacha on today if the edut was not given completely. והוזמו שניהן, הרי שניהן ארגן אלוהיכם ומשלמים. שכל עד שאומר אחר עדוס לחברו הן, הרי זה כמי שנחקר ועד כמו שעד חברו. So the Kohen, who is this? This is the Rambam. Seems to be the Rambam is saying that it would work. The Rambam says then it would work. Here, let's see the English. If one witness testified and his testimony was complete, and the other witness testified and said, I too heard as they did, by Torah law, his testimony is considered complete. Nevertheless, it says that each witness should state his testimony clearly. In a case involving blasphemy, when it is appropriate to repeat when it's inappropriate, the stage is established halacha according to Torah law. Right, so the Rambam says the halacha is like the Reish Lakish, and he seems to be saying that it's everywhere. He seems to be saying, according to what I see here, that it's everywhere like that. Right. Okay, that's what seems to be the halacha is like that. All right, fine. We'll end off over here for today. Any questions we'll take, otherwise we're good to go. Shavua tov lekulam. Toda rabba.
Thank you.
Thank you.